Hello, everybody, and welcome to this second episode of season three of Putting the Human into Technology. My name is Gethin Ellis, and my special guest this week is James Endersby, who is the Director of Technology, I beg your pardon, for Asthma and Lung UK. James, thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers. No, it's nice to be here, actually. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm looking forward to the questions as we go through. So I'll just kick things off with the first one. Can you just please tell us a little bit about yourself, your organisation you work for, what they do, and how they deliver? What they do, what services they provide, and
What
so
I
on.
do. Okay, yeah. So my name is James Endersby. I'm the Director of Technology for Asthma and Lung, which is the UK's leading lung charity, um, campaigning on behalf of everybody who has a lung condition. We have an interesting setup as a charity where we do helpline services. So if you've got a lung condition, and I suggest you do this, if you do have lung condition or you know anybody who does, you can ring our helpline to speak to a nurse or get some health advice. We handle quite a lot of calls, about 20,000 a month, I think. So we handle quite a few calls a month. Yeah, it's quite big. We also do research grants, so we award over £2.5 million of research grants every year. I think this year it's 3 million because it varies from year to year as some research ends and some starts up. We also do external affairs, so we campaign with the government and the NHSE, so NHS England as a whole, looking to champion the causes of lung patients in the UK, and of course we do fundraising as well to pay for all this. So as a charity, we're a kind of a quite complex one with 4 different groups vying for the same resources. I started there in 2020 when the Asthma UK and British Lung Foundation merged, and I was brought in to merge them actually. Which I did in 9 months at pace during the COVID. And that's my role there. And then previous to all that, I've worked in government and charities and the education sector, doing transformation work for the last 12 years. And before that, I came through the customer services route, so through the help desk environment, which I think is really useful when you become an IT director, because you can do the human bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. The merger sounds like merger in lockdown sounds like quite a challenge. Was it easy because it was easy to change things because people were open to change because they had to, or was it more difficult because everyone was at home and you had to ship stuff to people? And I guess merging systems and stuff is quite a challenge all on its own without people in the same room, perhaps.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'd have to say this. It was beneficial to be doing it in lockdown in some respects. I was doing a merger, so everybody wanted to change. That's really easy. Both the organisations really wanted to change. They wanted to do it quickly, which was really nice. With the pandemic and being a lung charity, quite a lot of our resources went out to doing that. And our helpline that can take about between 300 to 400 calls a day was getting over 4,000 calls a day at the peak. It was ridiculously. We couldn't answer everybody's call, I'm afraid. And one of the funny stories I got about it is Boris Johnson announced our website on the BBC News, and the website was not geared up for national service, put it that way, and just absolutely imploded in 5 minutes. It took a year's worth of traffic in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then just imploded. I fixed that and it was fine afterwards. It never happened again. But the technology they had set up before we merged was due to a certain amount of replicas, a certain amount of availability. You chuck a year's worth of traffic in 5 minutes and it just wasn't able to cope. It can now though, but nobody's mentioned it since, so it's fine. But getting back to your question,
let's hope they never need to mention it again, eh?
Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, with the eye of the charity on the lung pandemic, a lot of the autonomy of how to do stuff just fell to me, which was really nice. So I was working independently just to get things done quickly, on the changes and stuff. So the sometimes onerous project surveillance was much lighter and allowing much flexibility now to do stuff. I mean, we did roll out 190 laptops to people's homes. I moved the national helpline to home working 3 weeks before the lockdowns. Actually, I could see something coming, so I preempted it and said, right, we're going to move to home working now, so that if it does happen, we are fully ready. And I moved the helpline to home working 3 weeks before. The other thing, because we were merging, we shut lots of our remote offices as well, and because of the downturn in the cash, I shut 6 of the 7 offices, which meant getting rid of legacy tech was quite easy because a lot of it was in those offices. So all the phone systems merged onto a new phone system. I did loads of stuff around that. And when it came to difficult decisions about equipment and technology, there was a little bit of every 35 grand I save is someone's job. So suddenly the conversations became very easy to turn off hardware and software because I was saving people's jobs, because the income dropped, as did with all the charities. You know, money's tight, so people give less. So anyway, that's a little bit about how I managed it. So
fab. Cool, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess the next question is sort of semi related to that, anyways. So the question is, I'll just pop it on the screen because I do tend to forget. Is, can you share how technology and data have transformed your organisation's approach to achieving its mission? And I guess with that merger, there might be lots of stories in there that you could share as well.
Yeah. There's too many actually. So I was trying to keep it concise, if I can. So the main aim when they merged was to become location independent. So utilising the full cloud, not being reliant on offices and the burden of offices, able to recruit people around the UK rather than in the hubs where we were, was also a big advantage, giving us a more geographic spread of people and stories and outreach, which is what I've done. So we literally turned the legacy equipment off about 6 months ago. We are completely cloud. Everything's new. The only system I haven't changed is the finance system. And a lot of it was merging multiple systems into one system. And the other thing about the merger, and I think mergers are unique in this, is because the organisation is new, you don't need to take so much with you. So I really was quite strong on, we didn't take a load of data with us. Stuff that was really old wasn't needed. So on the migrations, we didn't take loads of files across because some of the stuff didn't relate to the new organisation we wanted to be. So there's a lot of that. But the CRM has really assisted the organisation in having, or starting to have, a single view of the support and the work that we do. And the helpline is also on the CRM, managing the calls through that. I also merged, I and a team, it wasn't just me, by the way, but we merged 7 websites into one, one-ish, I would say. Actually, there's still a few small ones out there, but the majority of the stuff is all all on the same website and curated and cared for by the DE team, the digital engagement team. But the technology is there and thereabouts. And I think the other thing I alluded to it was putting that enterprise class systems in that allows the organisation to grow and develop and not be held back by limits and constraints of technology or change or visits and stuff like that. It can just cope with whatever is thrown at it, if that makes sense. So quite a bit of redundancy and quite a bit of scalability is built into it on the underlying side. So yeah.
Cool. So I guess the CRM bit with the merger. If there was two organisations coming together, was it like much complexity in that? Was that a tricky thing to merge?
Yeah, it was a tricky thing to merge. We had two legacy CRMs that were both about 20 years old, and as I said to the team, you've got your value out of them. We now need to move on to something new, rather than saying, "Oh, the system's awful, we need to get away from it." No, the systems were great, but they didn't serve the purpose of the new organisation. So what the biggest challenge is with any new organisation, you've got new processes. And it was the processes. So we had Asthma UK processes and BLF processes. They were different.
Yeah.
Agreeing a new process and a new way forward was the most complex bit of the whole thing. Building it is easy once people know what they want. It's just software, and you program it up. It's when people go, oh, that's not what I imagined it to be, or that's not what I thought it was going to be. Or I think when we built the helpline, they were very, very kind nurses, and they built it, and at no point did they say they didn't really like it until it came to the handover, and they go, well, we didn't want to say anything, but we don't like it.
Oh dear, it's a bit late now.
Well, no, we then put another sprint in and did the changes they wanted. But actually, I think there's a little bit of learning, that as a SME, you need to speak up and say what you want, and that's one of the lessons we learned from the first bit we did. So we broke the CRM into two halves. We did the helpline first to de-risk it. It was a small, discrete piece of work. See how the organisation worked, see what the challenges were in delivering an agile project in an organisation that wasn't even a year and a bit old, if that makes sense. So, and what was the understanding of agile, and that was quite good. And then from the lessons we learned there, we then changed how we approached phase 2, which was fundraising and everything else. But even then, the processes around how they wanted to work was the hardest piece, actually. Yeah. And getting the users to say exactly what they want and how they want to work is the challenge, I think, in all these things.
The technology is the easy bit. It's the people that are the
zeros and ones. Yeah.
And I guess that segues into my next question, which you may have actually answered, but I'll ask it anyway. And if you feel like you've answered it in that, feel free. We'll move on. The biggest challenge your organisation has faced in implementing new technologies, and how did you overcome those challenges? Is the question.
I think every platform has got its challenges. The CRM, the biggest challenge there was around processes. The website, the biggest challenge they had, and I didn't really take this one on, it was done by somebody else called Jess Kirby, who did a fantastic job, was merging the content of all those websites. What health information trumped which other bits of health information. So merging that single source of information, that was quite a challenge there. So there was a content issue there. And Jess did a fantastic job on that one. I think the other biggest challenge we've had is two organisations with different ways of planning, coming up with a new planning. These are and still remains a challenge to the organisation. Some people like to plan in different ways. So we had a head, a PMO, Jenny, who came in, and she was leading through how to plan. And that was a big challenge to get everyone to agree, roadmap it, time, scale, costs, that's those basic bits. The technology, I find it relatively easy. I've spent a career in it. You can build it as quickly as you like. I think the scariest bit about technology is when it's blank and you don't know what to do with it, like an empty Excel spreadsheet. But what you put into it, what you put into it is what counts. So I think those were the biggest challenges. Content, process and planning were the biggest challenges. And I think that's the same for every organisation, actually, in some respects. But with a brand new organisation with two different ways of thinking, two different ways of approaching it, it was the biggest mash-up, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Fab. Cool. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then this brings us then to, I guess, the last of the serious questions, and we can get on to the fun bit after. But this last serious one is, if in your role as director of technology, looking ahead, how do you see data and technology shaping the future of the not-for-profit sector?
Yeah, I mean, I was just at the Charity IT Leaders Conference, which is a really good conference for any people from the charity sector out there. If you join the Charity IT Leaders, which is a charity in its own right, they have a conference once a year, and this was one of the topics that came up. A lot of the charities are struggling with legacy data, because the data they have collected was not designed for decision making, or not designed for insight. It was just designed to capture people who had attended events and done X and done Y, and this was the outcome. And I think that's the biggest thing facing most of the charities out there is we have data, but the insights are harder to find because it's, you've someone doing in a London marathon, you've got their training, you've got their t-shirt size, you've got the time, you've got the money they gave you, but they didn't think, oh, what social economic group you're in, actually. That didn't come up when you're running a marathon. Now people want to know what social economic group you're in. And then that's the hardest bit, taking the data, matching it in with other data sources as well to kind of build that out. And Experian do a really good data matching service, so you can ingest the data. They will add the data when they can match it across and give you something a little bit more out the back. That's really
okay.
Good. But also, I think with charities. Oh, have you lost me? Or am I back?
No, I can hear you. You're still there.
It was just an ooh with excitement, was it? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think the other one, especially with Asthma UK and British Lung Foundation, one of the reasons why they merged is had quite high churn. So 40% churn was typical in any year. So
is that staff churn, or is that like donations churn, or
staff churn? So what you happen is, as I could phrased it once, is every 3 years you've got a brand new organisation. So the ideas don't stick. Everybody comes with a new way of doing it. So there was that fractured data from people doing the same thing in slightly different ways. And I think that's fairly common in all the charity sector. It can be a jumping off point to something else and something new. So that's one of the other challenges charities face, is there's sometimes a bit of churn in the background that really, I collected the data, I did this event this way, and then I did the event this way, but the data doesn't match up. So we're doing quite a lot of work on standard data fields at the moment. The head of data is doing a lot of work at the moment with the data agency to look at the building blocks. So we've got the technology there, and technology is fine. The data that lies on top of the technology is as good as it can be at the moment, and there's things I can build to make it better, but what do you want to build? How do you want to build it? What does that data factory look like? What does that data warehouse look like? What are we going to capture? How are we going to move it? Where are we going to archive it to? Those questions come out of the data design. That data design is new and young, especially in the organisation I am in, but talking with other charities who have been around a lot longer, still got the same issues. How do you build the data warehouses to match the data that you want to have? And then how do you move it around? It's easy to move it around, but what do you move around? You can't move everything. So we've been looking at middleware to really capture the data that needs to flow between systems, and the starting point that was standard data across all systems. So do the usual stuff: first name, last name, email address, postcode, affiliation to calls.
Yeah.
So why are you interested? Don't capture that half the time. Okay. So Asthma UK captured none of that because everyone's affiliated to asthma. Now that we're British Lung Foundation, half the data, we assume you're interested in asthma because that's the way you came from.
Yeah.
But actually, it didn't get built into the systems fast enough when we did all that. So that's the other one, and postcode. So that helps with the data matching and socioeconomic grouping and stuff like that, which we can derive from that kind of thing. But yeah, it's that kind of they're the challenges at the moment,
Cool.
and it faces the whole sector. So
Across the board, it was interesting. Like you mentioned, you had a head of data. Now, when I was looking for people to come on the show, I did searches for that, and I didn't see one for heart and lung. I didn't see the head of data. Didn't come across it. Didn't turn up in my sector, but in my search. But is that an established role? Has it been there forever, or is it reasonably new in the scheme of things? Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 18 months old.
18 months old.
Role, and some charities embraced the data digital technology model, which I think personally is a really good way. Having it in one team really makes an impact. Other charities, a bit like ourselves, just on the smaller side, if you have a full data digital technology model, it could, if you're not careful, unbalance the organisations. All the decision making is made by one team. You can design around it, but I think the way forward for the future is having one team that handles the whole thing, because you got the BAs can cross scale, which I'm doing it currently with these. We've got the user BA, the system BA, and the data BA all working together on those data insight journeys, system journeys, and all that kind of stuff. But the cross skilling really starts to come alive then when you bring in the kind of data elements with the digital experience underpinned by the systems. It's really easy to map those three different but similar journeys, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then you start getting this. We'll go back to the previous thing I said about people not understanding the process. So the process, brilliant. What data do you want to capture? What does the design of that system process look like? So the process for the system is really easy. Are we capturing the right data? Yes, we are. Are we capturing the right point? Possibly not. Do we need to know somebody's ethnicity before they run a marathon? No. Nice to have it at the end when they've had a really good journey with us and they've had a great experience and feel like a success. Then you can ask that kind of awkward question. But for charities to report on impact in the UK, you need to ask those questions. But it's kind of odd, can I give you £10 just for what is your nationality, where you from, they're not questions that trip out at the beginning of the journey. So again, quite a lot of system design around that is really key to make it happen.
But I guess they're questions that need to be asked to make sure, just from an equality sort of standpoint and an unbiased sort of standpoint. If you're capturing that data, you can measure it. If you don't capture it, you can't measure it, I guess is the is the rationale.
A little bit, yeah. And also, I think if you're not careful, you can have a bias in your approach creeping in, which you're not aware of. Are your campaigns reaching everybody? Is the message you're sending out as a charity, whoever you are, landing with all the right individuals you want to capture? If you just have the data from one social economic group, guess what? All your campaigning is hitting that group and repeats again and again and again. And actually, I think the public need to be aware that to get the most out of your charities, you need to have that social economic diversity, and the only way to capture that is to actually unfortunately ask at the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. Thanks, James. That's awesome. I've got one more question on something you mentioned earlier, and it was around and this is purely selfish because I just want to know a little bit more about it, the Charity IT Leaders Conference. I guess my first question is, you said that's a charity in its own right. Would that be open to people from CICs like myself, or is it solely for charities?
It's solely for charities, but it's sponsored by industry. So there's a number of vendors who support it every year. They have guest speakers from outside the charity sector. So we had a number of people. We had the CEO of Guide Dogs speaking very passionately about his work and the way he sees the data technology and the digital piece really interfacing across the whole of Guide Dogs. That was an amazing speech. But yeah, it's a really good group for all those charity IT leaders to come together, share ideas, share costings, technology, how they've done stuff, common pitfalls, so you're not alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is but the charity IT leaders themselves, and I think Tree would actually be really good to get on here. Actually,
say again. Was that?
Tree Hall would be really good to come on us and talk about some of this at a later date. But yeah, there is space for people to assist in that work that charities do. So yeah.
Well, I'll catch up. I'll touch base with that off air when we wrap things up, James, because I'm interested to find out a little bit more. But that's brilliant. Thank you for that. So we've come to our final question. I haven't got a slide for this, and we make 4 available. And you asked if you could answer, what advice would you give your younger self just starting in the IT industry? I love this question. So over to you.
Yeah, well, this one, I think, as some of you may have heard, I've got a slight stammer. I wore glasses from the age of 4, and I'm dyslexic. Some they go ahead; they all go combined occasionally. So that probably makes me quite neurodivergent. I haven't been tested; don't need to. I know I'm on the spectrum at some point. But I think when I was going through school and I was forecast to have 2 CSEs, so that shows my age, and that was all I was going to get, and they wouldn't be in maths and they wouldn't be in English. And actually, coming out with the degree and becoming a director of technology, my dad said to me the other day, I didn't know you would end up here. We thought you'd be, a milkman or shop worker, or nothing wrong with shop work. So don't get me wrong, but I'm leading a team. I'm making a difference in the world of the technology. I think, and I was reflecting on this the other day. I think the hardship makes you who you are, but in those darker moments, just knowing that, don't let it get to you quite so much, because you can make it. And those neurodivergent skills you have, especially in dyslexia, where you can a vision of the world, it's very pictorial. I can see everything joined up in my head. So those skills particularly make me really good around system design and architecture. I can envision it in my mind really clearly. And then I'm quite now, even with a slight stammer, I'm better at speaking and talking because of the hardship around writing. Now, don't get me wrong, I can write a report, but I need quiet, and I need to have done all the boring tasks that I needed to do, to get out of the way so I can sit down and get on with it. But I think just give yourself a bit of time and a bit of space, because all those neurodivergent skills, they make IT work. There's a lot of people in the world of IT who are neurodivergent, and they give you different skill sets. ADHD, you can manage multiple projects at the same time. OCD, you're really good at attention to detail. Autism, you're really good at documentation. You can really get into the depths of what you're doing because the concentration is amazing. When you've made it a superpower, I think that's the hard bit as you're growing up, making it a superpower. When you've found your own coping mechanisms through, my God, you deliver amazingly good stuff. And I think that will be the thing that I'll tell myself is you're going to deliver really good stuff in the future. Bit of hardship at the moment, but it's going to stand you in really good stead. So
I just a question on the sort of dyslexia side of things. Do you treat that as a superpower? You just said it there, and I know other people that I know personally treat whether they're what neurodivergent they are, where they are on the spectrum. They say it can be like a superpower. Have you managed to turn your dyslexia into a superpower?
Yeah, there's a website, Positive Dyslexic. I think it is the Positive Dyslexic or something like that, or Positive Dyslexia. There are loads actually, but it's around that. So one of the things I learned the other day is because I think in pictures. So most people think 150 words in their head. and this is the only way to describe dyslexia in some respects, I think of 150 pictures a minute in my head, and a picture says 1,000 words. So this is why when you're writing, oh my God, it's so slow, and the painfulness of actually having to slow your brain down to type is what makes me, particularly as a dyslexic, have more issues. I miss chunks of sentences out. I can't be bothered to spell words correctly because my brain's racing ahead. That is my superpower. I can think really quickly. Explaining stuff afterwards, nightmare, because you have to break it down. How do you come to that conclusion? Well, okay, how long have you got? But no, I think that's one of the things, the unforeseen side of it. I think really quickly, but that is caught up in my reading and my writing because they are so slow. When you're visual, you visually think. I think that's the only way I found out to describe it the other day. You're thinking really quickly, and the depth of your thinking is quite wide, but capturing that when you're dyslexic in reading and writing is where the input out fails, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's how I see it. But there was I'll send you the link later to this, but it's a really interesting flip on why dyslexia is so good and why it exists. It exists because people who could track animals could visualize where the animals have been and look at that detail and stuff like that. So it's all around tracking. And
I'd love to have a read of any links you've got, James. I really would.
Yeah.
Send them through.
I'll send it across. Yeah. But that's what I think. I think it's really helped me in my career. And the world of IT is so diverse. But if you can I can hold it in my head just about and pull those little visions back in, and that's how I've made my career. So
brilliant. Well, James, that brings us nicely to the end, telling us all about your superpowers and how you treated it from your younger self. So hopefully there's some really good advice in there for young kids coming through. But James Endersby from Asthma and Lung UK, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you all in the next season. Next episode even.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks.